Jackie.
And this is Heather.
And welcome to
Millennial Mom Chatter, your go-to podcast for candid conversations and fresh perspectives.
We're just two millennial moms navigating life one hilarious audio message at a time. Join us for laughs, adventures, and real talk.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
We're super stoked for today's episode.
Yes, we have a guest today, and she's a mom, a fellow millennial, and you even may recognize her from 90 Day Fiance. We have with us here Kara, Leona, and we are going to be diving about all things real estate and kind of like the fun stuff she has going on, such as music and mom life and all of that. So we're excited.
Well, welcome, Kara. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And we're super excited to chat with you just because of the way that the economy is and real estate is and just anything for millennials and Gen Z coming into this world right now and trying to step into adulthood. So we were really excited to kind of pick your brain and kind of just get a little insight from you from your real estate perspective on what the market looks like and what people can expect moving forward these next few years, just if they want to step into the home buying industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, it's wild times out here in the real estate world, and being a millennial, it's just all wild.
No, for sure. So first, we'll get to know you a little bit. So how did you decide that you wanted to get into the real estate industry?
So my mother and my stepdad constantly were like, you should do real estate. You'd be really good at it. You would be so great. You should try it. And he has a background, my stepdad, of commercial and residential real estate, but now he does mostly commercial for decades. And my mom was kind of an unlicensed admin for him, not by choice per se, but just being his wife. And so they were always like, oh, you have the personality for it and da 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 da. But when it comes to being licensed for real estate, it's state by state. And I was never in America long enough to get licensed, or sit for the exam and then do all the things. It takes time to build your business. And I was just never around enough to do that. And I was like, okay, maybe one day, but not now, because I'm traveling and I'm doing all these other things. So when COVID happened, I was working at a specimens management laboratory. And it became a COVID laboratory as well. And I hated my job. I hated it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm stuck in Virginia. I was like, I have no other plans for the foreseeable future other than at the time waiting for my fiance to come over. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm going to go ahead and just take this time to better myself, work on something, be excited for something. I hate feeling stuck in something I don't like. And I'm a big proponent of, if you don't like something, you got to work to change it instead of just wallowing in it. You can wallow for a little, but then you got to get out of it and make a game plan. So that was my game plan. And I, decided I was going to get my realtor's license in February of 2021. And I started taking classes. And by April, I had passed the exam. And then in July, I decided that I was going to hang my license with Keller Williams here in Charlottesville.
So do you only have your real estate license in the state of Virginia, or are you planning on stepping out into other states as well?
I currently am only licensed in the state of Virginia, and I think I prefer it that way only because I think to be a really good realtor, you should be an expert in the area that you're selling and helping people buy and sell in. And so I'm just not an expert in other states. I'm from Virginia. I've lived in Charlottesville the majority of the time I've been in the United States. And so I just feel really confident that I can guide people in the way they need to be guided. And it scares me a little, truly daunting to think about having to relearn a whole new city and the best areas and the parks and the neighborhoods and the restaurants. And it's just it's second nature for me in Charlottesville, and it's not really anywhere else.
Yeah, you know the area, the schools, everything. So it makes it really easy to be like, okay, I already have a neighborhood in mind of what would fit you best.
Exactly. When they're running down the list of things that are important to them, I'm already being okay, this is a good neighborhood. Okay, that's a good spot. Okay, I would they'd probably like to see a house here, and I can start pulling all that data for them based on what they're telling me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then would you say that you have any tips or pointers or advice for millennials and Gen Z who are trying to step into adulthood and thinking about buying a house in today's market?
Yeah. I would say be kind to yourself, number one. It's a big challenge. And we're not like our parents. I think sometimes we're thinking like, oh, like my mom had 3 kids and like a regular job and like was able to buy a home at like 22. And it's just like not the same as our generation. And so first I would say just be kind to yourself. But also I would start to think about like what does your life look like? Like what is your goals? Like are you planning to stay in a house for 5 years or 2 years? Like do you want to buy a house to have it be eventually be an investment property? Or is it going to be your forever home? Or do you just like what are your start to really map out what your goals are, and then it'll help you be able to decipher the path forward. And then beyond that, it's obviously working with a licensed professional and good people in your team that can advise you, whether it's a lender or a realtor or otherwise, just to make sure that you're getting the most up to date and best information. Because I can try to give you, like market related stuff, but I am steeped in Virginia and I'm particularly central Virginia, and every market is hyper local. So, what might be happening here in central Virginia is not what's happening in Miami or Kansas or wherever. So, making sure you're seeking out licensed professionals that have good reputations where you are, who are good in your market is really, really crucial. Like, I'm not here to bash like corporate, like financy, companies or anything, but there are some that are really just trying to get your dollars and are not very helpful at all. So go local. It's one of the few things that you can actually still do locally, and it's going to be the better option.
Oh,
No, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned Miami, and
Oh, yeah? Are you a homeowner?
yeah, I am.
Yay, congratulations.
I got in. Luckily, we owned a house before, but luckily it was perfect because we sold our house at the end of 2018, and we sold our house is the highest selling one in our neighborhood, and so we had a good amount of money from there, and then we bought this house now for $479. We live on a quarter acre, which new builds are like, you know how that is.
Yeah.
Miami, zero lot line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now our house is worth like 1.2 million.
Bam, look at you go. Yeah. See, and that's the best part about being a homeowner.
Yes. So what is your recommendation to people? Because people are always like, do I wait to buy? Because it's so expensive right now. But then you wait to buy and then like it just continues to rise,
Yeah. So it's gonna be daunting. Buying a house is daunting. Yeah. Just is what it is, unfortunately. But I always tell people it's better to go ahead and buy now if you can, because the only market we know is the current market. When it's just like life, like we don't know what's happening in the future. We don't know what it could look like, but you have to make decisions based on what you do know and what is tangible in your hands, right? So people can forecast things, but like, for example, when the pandemic happened, nobody foresaw that, the pandemic was going to happen and interest rates were going to drop to like 1.9, 2.5%. And that it was going to be this like huge rush of housing into the market and that it was going to be a frenzy. Nobody could have foresaw that. And so I think you have to just go with what you have and what you know. And again, it comes back to working with really good professionals that can help you kind of pave the way, because no one should be doing this on their own. It can be done, but it's not recommended. I will just say that. And so you just have to go with what you have currently, because you can't put stake in what could be happening in the future, because anything could happen in the future. So yeah, I always say the best time to buy is now. And if you can't, for whatever reason, qualify to buy currently, start working on that. Start working on a plan. Start working with a local lender, because they're actually the first step, not a realtor. Realtor comes after you've worked with the lender to make sure that you are pre-approved and that you have all your ducks in a row financially to be able to purchase a home. And that helps the realtor understand what kind of home they can start pulling for you. I'm sorry, I just got a phone call. If you don't have a budget, then you don't know what you can afford. And so the lender is going to be crucial in lining out those steps. Let's say your credit's not perfect right now. They can lay out like a 1 to 2 year credit plan that's going to help get your credit in a place where you can purchase. Or let's say you're like myself, you're self-employed. And so you have to have multiple years of income on your taxes shown. And a lot of people that own their own businesses just write off everything. And then you look like you don't make any money. And then you can't qualify to buy a home. So having those conversations with your lender before you are like thinking about it, or when you're thinking about wanting to buy a home, is really crucial. And that way you're setting yourself up for success whenever you are available to buy a home.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then would you say that there's like a recommended timeline for maybe like say a renter right now who's still trying to like establish themselves financially? Should they go and talk to a lender today or should they give themselves time?
I think the sooner the better. There's no harm in going
Okay.
ahead and being like, hey, in 5 years, I want to buy a house. Like, what does that look like for me right now? Is my credit in a good place? Do I need to do my taxes differently? Like, do I need to show certain things? Like, there's no harm in knowing too much. And you might walk in there and you have great credit and everything is perfect and you have a W 2 and a consistent job and you're like ready to go. And that's great too, but it's better to know ahead of time if there are things that are going to inhibit you from buying a home before you're at that mark. So it's never too early, I'd say. And so you might hop in there a little early and then you have to wait, and then that's fine. But it's better to know ahead of time than too late.
Yeah, for sure. So, what advice would you give to yourself, your younger real estate self, at the beginning of starting?
Yeah, I would say get to know Uncle Sam really well. Because when you're a realtor, you are self employed. And so
Yeah.
understanding how to file taxes when you're self employed is different. And as millennials, we don't get a lot of education and schooling about how the taxes are done,
We do not.
So, like, which is still baffling to me. I'll never understand it. It's like the most important thing, one of the top things we do to establish wealth and like being understanding how not to go to jail based on like, your taxes, but yet no one talks about it. It's so bizarre. But yeah, I would say for me, initially, you're in your first realtor and you get your first commission check in. Most people aren't used to getting these like big chunks of money out of nowhere and then having to then like make that money last. So I would say, it's really important, young Kara, to like have a separate bank account that those go into that then you pay yourself regularly, like you're
Mhm.
your own employee, so I give myself a paycheck from that account and that way you can make that go longer. Also, you have to set aside money for taxes and business expenses. And then after that, you can have your take home.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
can have what you get to take home because if you're not paying quarterly taxes and you get that big bill after you've been working all year and it's like a third of what you made and you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my God, I thought I had 60% and I actually only had 30%.
Yeah.
It's rough out there and it's really tempting as a young person. I mean, I got my license when I was like 29, which is not like terribly young, but in real estate, the average age of a realtor is like 60. So it is young for a
Oh,
realtor.
wow.
Wow.
And
I didn't
so,
know that.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's crazy. So I'm just like a baby in my office running around.
Is
But
it a post, like people finish their career and they're like, I'll do this as my second career?
I think so. I think it's also a snapshot of people who got licensed younger, like are still in it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think it's like that's not the average age that people get licensed. That's like the average
Right.
age of like the whole like pool of what the current age is. So I think
Hmm.
it's just some people are getting it later as like a part-time retirement kind of just like income. Some people are getting them younger, staying in it their entire lives. So yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge, but people typically don't get into real estate super young just because I think it's not something people are truly interested in until they've gone through it themselves or in a place where they're interested in like investments or financials, which is not what young people are typically doing.
Right. Yeah, and we're not taught it either. Like you said, it's. I still obviously I've been adult for a while and I own a home and have 3 kids, but it feels like anytime something taxes or anything like financial related comes up, I'm like still like I have no idea what I'm doing.
I'm a little
No.
kid. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
It's like I'm a teenager and you need to teach me again. Like I'm always like, can you speak in like layman's terms, like just
Yeah,
like simple?
exactly. That's why we need to know it in school. I'm like petitioning, like, please teach people about taxes in school.
Yeah,
Universe.
forget like, I don't know, like aeroscience or like something that we're really, or like calculus. Like,
Trigonometry.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
what are we
don't
doing?
we don't need to know that stuff. We need to know how to do our taxes, how to buy a home, credit, all of the things.
Yes. Yep. In some ways, and like maybe this is a conspiracy, but like maybe they just don't want us to know so that they can still like tax us when we're late and they like charge you for it because you didn't know they were due and like you don't
Yeah.
know things. I'm like, oh, you didn't know that? Taxed
And
again.
they want us to rack up the credit cards. And
Right. Like they don't want you to be that savvy because then
it's
it throws a wrench in their game, you know?
it's so hard that nowadays it's just like anything finances, like it's so easy. Like think about even Amazon, man. Is like you literally just go like beam and it's bought and you don't see the physical like money disappear, right? Like it's just like
Oh, it's so easy. And now they have like the scanny hand thing at my Whole Foods where
oh
you
they
can just,
do.
oh, it's so crazy. It's like biometrics for your hand. So it's like associated with your Amazon account and you're just like, really scary. Oh, and that reminded me of one other tip for someone that is a millennial trying to buy a home. Please don't get wrapped up in the awe and allure of what people have on social media and they're buying these like multi-million-dollar houses. I feel like our generation in particular has been lucky enough to be raised in a time when we didn't have social media, but we're like enamored with it now. And a lot of it is not real. It's a highlight reel. Maybe these people bought these houses, but you don't know the circumstances that what they were under, if they had help or their husband's a sugar daddy or their parents are billionaires. Like you don't know any of that stuff. So don't compare yourself to others. Like it's okay to go out in the world and buy a small 1-bedroom condo and live in that for 5 years while you're making equity because it's going to get you ahead. Like it's fine. Go shoot, videos out in your yard. They don't have to see your crummy bathroom.
That's cool that you have
It's
that perspective to apply to your business, though, because I feel like a lot of people can be out of touch. So I feel like that's really cool for you to be able to apply that with your clients and your business.
Yeah, well, I guess too, my presence maybe on social media has like given me this kind of like inside perspective where I'm like, none of this shit is real. Like everything is fake,
Yeah.
And so I see people feel this pressure in their first home right out of the gate to want to like nail it, like their forever home. They want like the big mansion and the square footage and like the nice finishes. And I'm like, hey, starter homes are starter homes for a reason, you know?
No, for sure. And it's nice to be able to buy a cheaper home, right? Obviously, you want good quality in the sense of structure and all that, but buy
Don't
a
want to be
cheaper home,
unsafe.
right?
Yeah.
And make it your own because there's so many homes you could buy cheaper, and you doing it yourself ends up usually being cheaper, and you make it exactly the way you want it, and you pick exactly the tile you want, and all of that.
And what's really cool is not only do you get to make it your own, but like eventually, let's say you start out with a smaller property, you build some equity, and then you can maybe draw on that equity or use it as a rental and apply that rental income to your next home. And then you forever are having a stream of income that's not like your regular job, but you always have this other house that started as a smaller, your main home, and then became an investment property. Hello.
Yeah.
Everybody should be doing that. If you can do it, you should do it. It is such a good way to make stable cash flow.
No, for sure. I regret every day that we sold our house.
I mean, sometimes you just can't, though. Sometimes people need the money to buy the next home, and I get that. But if you can swing it, it's cool.
I know. And Miami is a huge renters market. Like
I'm
that,
sure.
It's a huge, I would say not more than anywhere else, but definitely like more than other places. And we used what we made off of that one for this 20% down payment. And I know we needed it, but I look back and I'm like, oh, like, even if we waited those 2 years, obviously we didn't know COVID was coming, right?
Of
so
course.
It is what it is. But even if we waited that year or two, you know how much more money we would have made off of
Right. Yeah. You get excited to just like make a move and make a change. But honestly, like patience will reward you in real estate sometimes, not hopping around. So I feel you. I have people that say it all the time.
I know. I think we all have a woulda, coulda, shoulda moment,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, on that point too about you said 20% down. Maybe back to the tips again, but like talking to your lender about different loan products because 20% down is the norm for like a conventional loan and even higher if it's an investment property. But there are some loans out there like FHA and others that you can do 3.5% down, 5% down. So you don't always have to feel like, oh, I can't buy because I don't have 20%.
Right.
Like there are ways and there's different programs regionally and within different areas to help with like low income housing. And we have something here called the Piedmont Housing Authority that helps people get into homes that otherwise couldn't qualify. And so there's all of these different options. So it's really important to talk to a lender because they're going to be the ones that can really map out which loan product is going to be best for your situation.
Right. No,
and your realtor should be able to recommend a good lender. So if you happen to run into a realtor that you know and like and trust, ask them who is their preferred lender because they're working with lenders all the time,
Yeah,
And
because
they
this
want you to
is
have a good experience. So
yeah, and this is something you can set yourself up for. Like Jackie said, if you plan on buying in 2 years, go now and see like what you need to do.
exactly. And like if it is the 5% down, then you're prepared to save the 5% down. And if it's 20% down, then you know you got to hit that mark. So it just helps you create a vision and a goal for where you're trying to
Right.
go and how to get there.
That's
Right.
a really good tip.
That is a good tip. So, as a real estate agent, a mom, an influencer, now you're doing music, all the things.
All the
How
things.
do all the things? I don't know
So
how
many
you do
things.
it. How do you
But
manage
yeah.
it? Do you time block? Do you have like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are real estate? Like, how do you manage your time?
Yeah. So I do a lot of things as you just said. And none of them are constant or consistent, which throws a real wrench into things because, if you could say something like, I'm only going to do these on this days and this on this day and this on this day, maybe my life would feel a little more organized. But because real estate comes in waves and seasons, and someone might pop up and say, "Hey, I really want to see this house today. Can you open it up for me and go show me?" That could happen on any day at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I try to do, the things that I can plan for, I do, and then I try to always leave space and time to be flexible because I know that things might and can be shifted around if need be, right? So what I'll try to do at the beginning of like the week, I'll review the things on my calendar and be like, okay, these are the things that have to be done at these times. Like, for example, this podcast. I'm like, okay, I know that this has to be done today. So that's like on my schedule. And if something pops up, I will move everything else around that is malleable before I will move this around because people are involved and there's preparedness involved. And so I just try to honor the things that I know I can't move. And at the beginning of the day, each day, I will sit down and say, okay, what does my day look like today based on what I know at this current moment? And what are the things, if something pops up, that I can move around? And what are the things that I cannot? And I always do a checklist. When I do that, I do a checklist of the day. So I'm like, okay, in the morning, there's a little bit of downtime. I'm going to make a reel. I'm going to reach out to that whoever. I'm going to call this client, make sure they love their house they bought last week. Like, I'm going to do the things that I can fit in that kind of free time. And then I'll do something that's like on the schedule that cannot be moved. And then I'll be like, okay, lunch is going to be there. And then I'm going to do nap time. And then so it's a mix of all the things that I do, but every day is different, but almost, I dabble in a little bit of most everything, most days.
So you do it all, Superwoman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do it all well sometimes. That's the difference.
But you
There's a
look
difference.
like you do, though. You look like
You
you're
look
holding
like
down the
you
fort
do.
very nicely.
Yeah, talk to my husband about that. Again, Instagram is fake. No, I'm just kidding. It's not fake, but it's a highlight reel, and there's definitely down days, and there's definitely times where I take my son has regular childcare on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the daytime, and there's some days that I'm like, I'm gonna do everything that I couldn't get done with my son in those days, and then that day comes, and I'm like, you know what? I also couldn't nap ever because I had a child, so I'm gonna nap today.
Yeah.
And so you just got to take the days as they come. I really appreciate this kind of workflow because I'm not like worker bee. I'm not a good employee. Like I don't do well waking up and doing the same stuff like every single day. So this kind of crazy smorgasbord of a lifestyle, it works well for me. I don't know if it would work well for everyone. So I think it's just really knowing who you are and how you function. Let me tell you, if I don't make that checklist every morning, I'm effed. I'm
Mm.
lost. I'm walking around like a little puppy and I'm just like, ooh, ah. Like I have to have something that I can go back to in those times when you're like, what was I doing? Like
Yeah,
my
a
baby was
visual.
crying and I started a load of laundry, but then I got caught off by over here. Like, what was it? And I can just go back to that list and say, oh yeah, I have 30 more minutes before I had to do that one thing. Let me do the things that are on the list.
I honestly
No,
need
for
to
sure.
start doing that. I'm like that. I'll have it's all up here, but then you're like, on your way up to, put the laundry in, and then you're like get distracted by something, and then the laundry's sitting there for 8 hours, and you're like, oh my gosh! Like when you're sleeping, you wake up. I forgot
Yes,
the clothes.
I was gonna say too, like sometimes on days that I know are gonna, like if the next day I know is gonna be really packed, I sometimes will do the checklist for the next day before bed, like, or in bed. Because if I don't, that internal monologue of the list of things that I need to write down in the morning won't let me go to sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, don't forget in the morning. You got to write down this. You don't forget in the morning. You got to write down that. And I'm like, why would I not just write it down now so then I could sleep?
Yeah.
You know, so then I get my little notebook. I have one by my bed and I have one like where I do my work on my kitchen table
that's
and I kind of
smart.
keep it in the drawer. And so if I think of something that is like pertinent and needs to be written down, I will write it down. And if I know that it's somewhere, it just lets my brain rest for a
Yeah.
second. You know, because like you can't write your kid down and say, okay, I'll talk to you later. You know, like you can't do that. So like you have to write down the things that you can write down so that you have space for the things that you can't.
No, for sure. That's smart. I need to get on board with that because
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many formats. Like maybe you're not like visually like a list person, but maybe you're like a Kanban board person or a visual whatever, and you want to write blurbs all over the place. Like it's not, there's no system truly. As long as you get it out, I think is what's the important part.
Yeah. No,
But
for
you
sure.
do make it look easy. Yeah.
There's systems. There's systems and things.
Well, I know you had mentioned that you're like super busy with all the hats that you wear, but do you have a favorite real estate reality TV series that you enjoy just binging or
This is
sitting
so
down to
funny.
watch?
I know this is going to be a bummer, but I'll tell you why. I actually don't watch any real estate reality television.
Wow.
And I know people are going to be like, why? But why though? And it's two things. Once you're on reality television, I don't want to say it ruins reality TV for you, but it's like you know how the sausage is made and it's like less appealing. And also, I'm a realtor and it's what I do day in and day out and what I think of all the time. And the last thing I want to do when I go to relax and like tune out for a second is watch other people stress about what I stress about all day long. You know what I'm
Fair.
saying?
That's fair.
And then also the reality part on it as well. I'm like, no, absolutely not. It's like both of my jobs coming together in one. Like I don't want to watch that when I'm at home just hanging out. Like I tune in more so to reality television that is true crime based because that makes me feel calm. And like Love Islandy, like kind of very light, fluffy, fun, superficial. Like I don't want to see people buy the house of their dreams. Like it's too much emotional for me. It's too much for me. But I get why it's intriguing and why people love real estate and it's really fun to be in, but you know, when it's your job, it's less fun to watch, I think.
Do you think you would ever go on a reality real estate TV series if invited?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Yeah, because that's different because then
Yeah.
you're like doing it, right? You're doing the two jobs that you have fun doing and you're making the sausage versus versus having to watch other people do it. It's different. I don't know how to really explain that difference, but yeah, watching it is like a little much for me, but if it were my job, I would do it.
Yeah. That's so fun.
I get that.
I mean,
I
they
get
look like
that.
they're having fun. I didn't even think about all the stress of like doing that job plus the reality aspect. So that makes sense from your perspective.
Yeah, it's like chefs, and I don't know if you have any chef friends, but they're like, no, when I come home, I put in a frozen pizza because I've been cooking all day. Like, I don't want to make like some
Yeah.
gourmet meal when I've been making gourmet meals all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. But at least if you did go on a reality real estate show, you would actually be a realtor because I feel like so many of these, at least they say the ones in like Selling Sunset, like there's some of that have never sold a house. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's also annoying too as a realtor because
Yes.
you can clearly see, you're like, no one would ever do that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole bunch that goes into that. It's funny though. Yeah, I would do it. I also was like telling someone in television world, I was like, we need to do a spinoff called Selling Seaville because that's like Charlottesville. We call it Seaville here locally. I'm like, it could be so fun. And then I was telling my broker, I was like, if I ever got my broker's license and made my own team, it would be like selling Sunset Energy, but like selling Seaville. Even though I've never seen it, I get the vibes. Like hot people, like helping people buy mansions. Like that sounds fun.
Yeah, it is. It's
I'd watch it. I would
definitely-
tune in for that.
I would too.
See? Thank you.
And you would, I feel like you would bring the fashion, the fun vibes, but you would be also like, you would make sure it was real, right? You would make sure like these are actually real people and you guys are real estate agents.
Well, yes, and like that gets convoluted as well. I would love to be able to do that, but unfortunately, I think it's maybe impossible to do your job truly as a realtor and also make television simultaneously
Mm-hmm.
because shoot days are long. People maybe don't want their private information on the television. Like some of it has to be maybe marginally fabricated just because of what's happening,
Right.
right? I don't know how many like licensed agents or true clients would want to be on a television. So maybe they're casted clients. Maybe it's not a licensed realtor. It's just a hot chick. And like
Yeah.
you make those decisions, I think, when you're making the show. But yeah, if I could create a real show that was like fun, fashion, but also substantive real estate, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. I think you'd be able to do it too. So leading into fashion, so at the end of every episode we do a hot take. And so you always are, to me, you're a fashionista. I always love to see your outfits. You always look put together. You look classy. So what now with the 90s trends coming back? What is your like favorite and that you're so excited that it's back? And which one are you like, it needs to stay in the past?
What do I like? What I don't like? There's a lot that I don't like. Okay, but I'm like, okay, I try not to be the millennial that's just shitting all the time because fashion is cyclical, right? Like we can't deny the fact that things are going to come back, right? So I like, what do I, ooh. Okay. What I really like is it's a makeup trend, a dark liner and like a lighter center with like an ombre lip, like the 90s, like Aaliyah, and she had like the two pieces of hair right here,
Yes.
and the rest was like clipped up, and she had that like dark lip with like just the liner was dark, and then the inner lip was lighter.
Yeah.
I just think it's so flattering to the lip shape.
Yes.
Like you're accentuating the volume on the outside, but like, making it look bigger on the middle. It's a great way if you don't have fat lips to make fat lips.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I could see that
But you
coming
have
back.
a good lip shape for that.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a question. That wasn't, I do.
No,
It was a question.
no, we can
No, you
affirm.
do.
You do.
Yeah, because you have the pretty like heart.
I
Yeah.
also had a little filler, so I won't claim that fully, but thank you.
It looks great.
That's
it looks
okay.
great. I think it's you did it very tastefully because I feel like it looks very natural on you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think there's an art to it. You don't want to like do a straight black liner with like a white lipstick. You're going to look like a little vampire-y, But I think you got to look at your color palettes and your skin tones and choose like slightly darker on the outside with something a little lighter on the inside that's not like super jarring. And then what's that? The bump, the hair bump. Never
the
want to see it again.
Oh.
No.
The poof.
No, we can't bring the poof back. No.
No, I am a
don't
fan
tell
of the
me one
poof.
Are
I
you?
loved it. Yeah, I had a
Really?
poof in my wedding. Like that
She
picture.
did. She did.
I will have it for the
Listen,
rest of my life.
I loved it then.
Yes, it needs
When
to
I
stay
came out
back
of
there.
that haze, when I came out of the haze of the poof, and now I look back at it, I'm like, where were we going with that?
I don't know.
Volume,
Yeah.
closer to God? I don't
Yeah.
know.
The higher the poof, the closer to God. Like,
Exactly. Like, so that was always an interesting one. Oh, and I hate how really long, like dresses over jeans, or like
Yeah.
whatever that shit was, like the long,
With the
long.
belt? With the belt.
Do you know how like women are fighting beauty standards all day long? Okay, and then what do? We chop our legs in half, and we make our torso 6 feet long.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why?
it really
Like, you're
was
not doing yourself
unflattering.
any favors.
Yeah.
Any favors. Also hate low rise jeans. I don't mind a baggy jean. But I don't want anything that's like more than an inch below my belly button. That's my lowest low. And if I could choose, it'll be around my waist.
And it's not flattering because like you even look back like, in the late 90s, early 2000s, and like even Britney and all of these people have great bodies. It hits at
Yes.
a point that you look like you have like a muffin top.
It's the widest point
Yes.
of their hips. And they're like, yeah, let's cut it right there.
Yeah.
It's just makes no sense. Like why are like corsets are corsets because they accentuate the body in the right places. And they don't have a corset for your hips. Like that's not there for a reason. I'd say.
I agree with you that, and I think for me, the one that is coming back that I'm like, God no, please, is the jelly sandal.
The jelly sandal, the one that's like fully enclosed. That
I
like
can't
buckles up
do
and
like
stuff.
adults should not be wearing jelly sandals, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some that can be okay, right? But I've seen some that like straight up are like 5-year-old girl like glitter jelly sandals. And you're
Glitter.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Hot
think
pink
it's
with
a
glitter.
fine line to walk. I think it's a fine line. What's really funny is that like trends happen in different places in different ways. And back in like 2016 or 2014, when I lived in Australia, I could not believe the amount of adult women wearing jelly sandals in 2014. I had this thought and I was like, what is happening? And then I came back to the United States and it never really took off here. But there was a time when it kind of had a resurgence in another place that I was living. And I was just like, ah. I mean, and not that I think they're like aesthetically so horrendous, but they definitely evoke like child.
Yeah.
And like, I just also bought like frilly socks. So I don't know.
Oh, the frilly socks, the little girl socks. They're so cute.
Yeah. But okay, they're not a full frill. I won't go grab them, but it's just like a slight little like, it's not like a lace frilly sock. It's just like a little taller because apparently you show your millennial age by wearing an ankle sock. So I was like,
yes.
okay, let me dabble
Yeah.
in like a slightly higher frill sock. And they're cute. They were cute.
Yeah.
I walked to the airport and I like passed a mirror and I was like, oh, I look cute.
Yeah. I'm
You
sure
know?
they're super cute. Like with what? Like a white sneaker?
Yeah, I was wearing a New Balance 515 in gray,
Oh, very
and
cute.
then I had like a short set from Fashion Nova on.
Very nice.
Yeah. It was airport stuff.
Yeah.
No, but you always look good.
Oh,
Like
thank you. No.
your green 2-piece set recently.
Yes. Wait,
Great.
the Australia one?
I don't know where it's from, but the one that was around your belly button.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was sort of something like that. The shorts were a little longer, but it was a tank, and it was for the Olympics. Their line with the Olympics, and so they had sent me some stuff, and it was perfect for the airport. And I threw like a little sweater cardi around the top because you need layers at the airport. And then I wore my sneakers with my frilly socks, and I was like, okay, I can walk in the airport like this.
That is so cute. I love that. Yeah.
That is
Also,
cute.
my airport fashion advice is to like don't look completely disheveled, people. And I don't hate on it because I know we're trying to get places, but you are in the mecca of people that are doing big things when you're at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you never know who you're going to get stuck beside, who you're going to end up chatting to in the longest Starbucks line of your life.
Yeah.
Like you never know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And like for me, I'm a big proponent of first impressions. And I just think people see you before they hear you. And so you should try a little, just a little, that's just my advice.
No,
and it's
that's really
professional
good.
people all at the airport, and they're all like you said, there's so much opportunity there.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity there.
You just never know, and you got to be prepared for what could happen,
Oh, for sure. Well, as we wrap things up, we would love to know where our listeners can find you on socials, any websites, anything like that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I mainly function at Cara Leona on Instagram. I also have a TikTok called at Cara Leona. I'm at Cara Leona literally on every platform.
Easy.
You can find me on Spotify, Cara Leona. I'm also a singer, which we can talk about later. But yeah, you can just search me by Cara Leona almost on every platform.
Awesome.
Perfect. Which, by the way, you have a gorgeous voice. I love when you do like the jazzy style.
Oh, me
Love
too.
it.
I love it. Yeah,
Your voice is perfect for that.
love all kinds of music, and like being a theater kid, I love theater music, and being raised in the country, I love like bluegrass and like country stuff. And then it's a whole thing, but I love all music, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, you sound great, and it's funny. It was so funny when we watched you on 90 Day Fiance. My husband is Nicaraguan, and he's like, wow, her Spanish is actually really good.
Thank you. Tell your husband gracias.
So when you sing in Spanish, it sounds like you would never picture your face, and you just do it so well.
Thank you. That means so much. Not being a native Spanish speaker and taking on Spanish language and music, I never want someone to say she sounds silly or she doesn't sound legit. No, that's my biggest.
At all.
Thank you.
Don't at all.
Appreciate
you
that.
don't at all.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you coming and taking your time to just chat with us. And
yeah, I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. And as always, thank you for listening, and we will chat next week. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.